What's up everybody, it's me E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and today we're going to review Pacific Rim Uprising.
If you haven't already, please go ahead and click on the subscribe button, and while you're at it, click on that little bell too.
Alright, let's kick it off with a quick intro.
10 years after the events of Pacific Rim, a new generation of Jaeger pilots rise up against a new Kaiju threat.
Alright, enough of that, let's get right into the good.
The good.
Now let's start off with the main lead for this movie in John Boyega. I thought this may have been one of his better roles in recent memory. He was able to show a more charismatic and even comedic range within his acting skill set. He really stepped into his role of being a leader, similar to his character's father, played by Idris Elba in the previous Pacific Rim movie.
He also made you want to jump into a Jaeger and fight with his corralling and inspiring speeches.
Now, one of the best aspects about this film are probably the new ideas that are introduced.
The Jaegers had new weapons and techniques that bring a new wrinkle into the action sequences. When the Jaegers are battling, it's certainly a sight to see and rather enjoyable. I loved how they maintained the Jaegers having their own distinct abilities and personalities depending on the pilot.
Beyond that, the actual plot was more intriguing than the previous film. The stakes were raised much higher with the new discoveries and developments in this sequel. There's even a very creative plot twist that will throw audiences for a loop. Best of all, this film had a brilliant idea to give us a different type of monster or enemy compared to what we've seen in the previous film. In other words, it's not just another wash, rinse, and repeat type of robots versus monster movie. Well, that's all for that. Let's get right into the bad.
The bad.
Look, this movie tried to do way too much, way too fast. It felt like it wanted to be so many different movies all at the same time. One example of this would be the ridiculous shifts in the tone. When there's an intense or even dramatic situation going on, some misplaced humor would just get injected. I mean, think of it like this. If you're taking on heavy gunfire, I mean, what's the natural response? You probably run away. Maybe if you're heroic, you pick up a gun and you start shooting back. You don't sit there and just have like witty, funny banter with someone else. Like that, it makes no sense. And aside from the disjointed tone of this movie, the direction for this film was just not very good. The editing in this film felt a little shoddy, and I would say that there are a number of slow motion scenes that just had no real reason to be in slow motion. And even if you can stomach all that, this movie tries so hard to be unnecessarily funny. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple pocket scenes here and there that actually are kind of funny, but there are a number of moments in this movie that are so corny that you'll probably get dizzy from all the eye rolls that you'll be doing. It's one thing for a movie to poke fun at itself, that's cool, but it's another thing to go from serious to funny to stupid, then back to serious. If you want an example of this, just pay attention to what I would call the Winter Soldier scene in this movie. It just doesn't make sense. And you can tell that it was clearly shoehorned in there just for the sake of comedic relief. Sadly, I really don't think that you end up laughing with this movie the way it probably intended. Rather, you probably end up just laughing at this movie. Another low point is just how little this movie did with its supporting actors. Scott Eastwood was so one-dimensional and... Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking his performance. He was basically the exact same character that was in The Fate of the Furious. Adria Arjona's character, Jules, was a complete plot device that served no real purpose except to boost Boyega and Eastwood's characters' masculine egos. Even the cadet pilots weren't developed properly because when certain events occur in the film, it's just kind of hard to care about any of them. Now, even though Pacific Rim Uprising had some really intriguing concepts, it felt like a carbon copy of movies that we've already seen before. It gave me the feeling as though I was watching Power Rangers meets Iron Man 2 meets Transformers the Last Night. I really hate that movie. If Michael Bay wrote a book about how to be a director, there were moments in this movie that felt straight out of that book. You have the very first scene of the movie being incredibly similar to the junkyard scene in Transformers. You've got a Bumblebee wannabe robot. Kaylee Spaney's character, Amora, is practically a carbon copy of Isabella Moner's character in Transformers 2. The main villain, who I won't spoil for you, is literally just like Rita Repulsa from the Power Rangers. The only thing missing for the villain to do and say was to just be like, "You Jaegers are giving me a headache!" Okay, enough of that. Let's get to the reason.
The reason.
Look, once again, Pacific Rim Uprising had a lot of really good ideas. It's kind of like when you're watching this, you'll get the impression that this was pitched in a writer's room and it sounded awesome. The only difference is it was executed poorly. And none of those ideas were translated very well on the big screen. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is director/writer Stephen S. DeKnight's first feature film. Unfortunately, in this film, his amateurism kind of showed. You'll definitely miss the previous director in Del Toro. I wanted this movie to be so good because there was a lot of potential there for it to be better. There were a lot of times when the movie felt like it was on the right track, but then all of a sudden it kind of gets a little derailed, but then it gets back on track later. I mean, kind of think of it as if you were riding on a train, and yeah, you might get to the destination of being entertained, but you're not going to enjoy that bumpy ride along the way. At the very least, and I feel kind of uncomfortable with saying this, but I'm actually a little excited if they decide to do a sequel for this. They just really need to get a much more qualified and better director to do it. So when it comes to the rating of Pacific Rim Uprising, I've got to give it a 6 out of 10. One thing I can say is that this movie made me appreciate the first Pacific Rim a whole lot more. As a matter of fact, if you are planning to go see Pacific Rim Uprising, I would say that you have to watch the first Pacific Rim first, mainly because they do a lot of callbacks and it's just going to help you remember certain characters and certain plot points as well. In addition to that, you have to go in with some low expectations. I mean very low. Like, how low can you go? Limbo low, okay? Delete that footage. So will you be checking out Pacific Rim Uprising? If you are interested in seeing it, I do have a link in the description where you can buy your tickets straight from Fandango. If you have seen Pacific Rim Uprising, tell me, what did you think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.